The police officer at the hospital waiting room asked if she had anyone to call, and Peyton Ellis realized with a sinking heart that the one person she wanted most was sitting 3 feet away, completely oblivious to how much she needed him right now. "I'm fine," she managed, her voice barely steady as she clutched her phone. The screen showed 17 missed calls from Sebastian Sutherland, the man she had been dating for 3 months. The man whose family wealth could buy this entire hospital. The man whose brother had just driven her here at midnight after finding her crying on her apartment steps. Sebastian Sutherland sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, his long legs stretched out in front of him, his dark hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it. He had been her best friend since college, 7 years of inside jokes and late-night conversations, and knowing each other better than anyone else in the world. He wore an old leather jacket over a simple black shirt, and somehow managed to look both concerned and calm at the same time. "Your mom's going to be okay," Sebastian said quietly, leaning closer. "The doctor said the surgery went well." Peyton nodded, blinking back tears. Her mother's emergency appendectomy had terrified her, the sudden phone call at 11 at night sending her into a panic. She had called Sebastian without thinking, and he had been at her door within 15 minutes, no questions asked. "Thank you for being here," she whispered. Sebastian's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Where else would I be?" Her phone buzzed again. "Alexander." She should answer, should explain why she had missed their dinner reservation at that exclusive restaurant downtown. But the thought of hearing his smooth, practiced voice right now made her stomach turn. "You going to get that?" Sebastian asked, his gray eyes studying her face. "Not right now." He did not push, just squeezed her hand gently and settled back in his chair. That was the thing about Sebastian. He never demanded explanations or made her feel guilty. He just showed up, solid and dependable, exactly when she needed him. The thing was, Peyton had not meant to start dating Sebastian's brother. It had happened almost by accident 3 months ago at a charity gala that Sebastian had dragged her to. She had been standing alone by the bar, feeling out of place in her borrowed dress, when Alexander had appeared beside her with champagne and a dazzling smile. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else," he had said. "Is it that obvious?" Only to someone who feels exactly the same way. He had clinked his glass against hers. "Sebastian Sutherland, I'm told I'm supposed to be networking." She had laughed despite herself. Alexander was handsome in an obvious way, all sharp cheekbones and expensive cologne, his suit probably worth more than her monthly rent. He was charming and attentive, and when he asked for her number at the end of the night, she had given it to him without hesitation. It was not until their 3rd date that she realized who he was. Sebastian's older brother. The successful one, the heir apparent to the Sutherland family fortune built on commercial real estate development. Sebastian had mentioned his brother occasionally over the years, but always in passing, and Peyton had never put the pieces together. "Why didn't you tell me you were dating Alexander?" Sebastian had asked when he found out, his expression unreadable. "I didn't know he was your brother at first, and then it felt awkward to bring up." "It's fine," Sebastian had said, but something in his voice had sounded off. "Alex is a good guy, I hope you're happy." She had wanted to believe that. Alexander took her to incredible restaurants, bought her thoughtful gifts, and said all the right things. He was everything she should want. Successful, confident, ambitious. He had plans for the future, big plans that he laid out over expensive wine and candlelight. But there were moments when she felt like she was playing a role in Alexander's carefully curated life. The perfect girlfriend who looked good at business dinners and laughed at the right moments and never demanded too much of his time. She told herself she was being unfair, that relationships took work and compromise. Tonight, though, when she had gotten the call about her mother and tried to reach Alexander, he had not answered. She had called 4 times while racing to put on clothes and find her keys, and every call had gone to voicemail. In desperation, she had called Sebastian, and he had answered on the first ring. "Miss Ellis." A nurse approached them, and Peyton jumped to her feet. "Your mother is awake. You can see her now." Relief flooded through her so intensely that her knees went weak. Sebastian stood quickly, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. "Go ahead," he said softly. "I'll be right here." Her mother looked small in the hospital bed, her face pale but her eyes alert. She smiled when she saw Peyton, reaching out a hand. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry I scared you." Peyton sat carefully on the edge of the bed, holding her mother's hand. "Don't apologize. I'm just glad you're okay." They talked quietly for a while, her mother's voice growing stronger as the anesthesia wore off. When the nurse finally shooed Peyton out so her mother could rest, it was almost 2 in the morning. Sebastian was exactly where she had left him, scrolling through his phone. He looked up immediately when she emerged. "She's good, she's good." Peyton felt the last of the tension drain from her shoulders. They're keeping her overnight for observation, but she should be able to go home tomorrow. "That's great." Sebastian stood, stretching. "Come on, I'll drive you home." The night air was cool as they walked to Sebastian's truck, an old Ford he had rebuilt himself years ago. It was such a contrast to Alexander's sleek Mercedes, but Peyton had always loved this truck. It smelled like coffee and old leather, comfortable and familiar. "You want to stop for food?" Sebastian asked as he started the engine. "You didn't eat dinner." Her stomach growled in response, and she laughed weakly. "How do you always know? 7 years of friendship. I'm basically an expert on Peyton Ellis at this point." They ended up at an all-night diner, sitting across from each other in a worn vinyl booth. Peyton ordered pancakes and coffee, suddenly ravenous. Sebastian got a burger and fries, and for a while they just ate in comfortable silence. "So," Sebastian said finally, stealing one of her pancakes. "Are you going to tell me what's going on with you and Alex?" Peyton's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean, Peyton? I've known you since we were 20 years old. I know when something's wrong." She set down her fork, staring at the table. "He didn't answer when I called." "Any of the times I called?" Sebastian's jaw tightened. "He was probably in a meeting or something." "At 11 at night, he works late sometimes, you answered on the first ring." The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Sebastian looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "That's different," he said quietly. "How?" He did not answer, just looked away and took a long drink of his coffee. Peyton's phone buzzed. Alexander again. This time she answered. "Peyton, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. My mother had emergency surgery." There was a pause. "Oh, is she all right?" "She's fine now, but I tried to call you multiple times." "I'm sorry, I was in back-to-back dinners with investors. My phone was off." He sounded genuinely apologetic. "I wish you had told me what was happening." "I tried to tell you. You didn't answer." Another pause. "Where are you now? I'll come get you." She glanced at Sebastian, who was very deliberately not looking at her. "I'm getting food. Sebastian brought me." "Sebastian." Alexander's tone shifted slightly. "Of course he did." "Well, tell my brother thank you. I'll see you tomorrow." "Yeah, tomorrow." She hung up feeling hollow. Alexander had said all the right things, but somehow it still felt wrong. "He's worried about you," Sebastian said, though his voice was flat. "Is he?" Sebastian looked at her, then really looked at her. "Do you love him?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know, maybe, shouldn't I?" "That's not an answer." "You think I should love him?" "I think," Sebastian said slowly, "that you should be with someone who answers the phone when you call." There was something fierce in his expression, something that made her breath catch. For just a moment, she let herself really look at him. Sebastian, who had been her constant for 7 years. Who knew how she took her coffee and what movies made her cry and exactly what to say when she was anxious. Who had dropped everything to be with her tonight without a second thought. Sebastian, who she had somehow never let herself see as anything more than a friend, because that was safe. That was comfortable. That did not risk everything they had built together. But sitting here at 2 in the morning in a dingy diner, exhausted and emotional and more vulnerable than she had been in months, she felt something shift. Some carefully maintained wall beginning to crack. I should probably give him a real chance, she said, but even she could hear how uncertain she sounded. Sebastian held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded and looked away. Yeah, probably. They finished their food and drove back to her apartment in near silence. When Sebastian pulled up outside her building, Peyton found herself reluctant to leave. "Thank you," she said, "for everything tonight. I don't know what I would have done without you." "You would have figured it out. You always do." He smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. "Get some sleep, Peyton." She climbed out of the truck and watched him drive away, and the hollow feeling in her chest grew worse. Over the next few weeks, Peyton tried hard to make things work with Alexander. He took her to a Broadway show and surprised her with flowers at work, and introduced her to his business partners as his girlfriend with obvious pride. He was attentive and generous, and she told herself she was lucky. But she found herself comparing everything to Sebastian. The way Alexander talked about his work felt like showing off, while Sebastian's quiet competence as a structural engineer never demanded attention. The expensive restaurants felt hollow compared to late-night diners. The carefully planned dates lacked the easy spontaneity of just hanging out with her best friend. And Alexander never seemed to really see her, not the way Sebastian did. She tried not to think about it. Tried not to notice how her heart jumped when Sebastian texted her, or how she found herself mentioning him constantly when talking to Alexander. Tried not to acknowledge the growing awareness that maybe, possibly, she had been in love with Sebastian Sutherland for a very long time, and had simply refused to admit it. Everything came to a head on a Saturday afternoon, when Alexander invited her to a garden party at the Sutherland family estate. She had met his parents briefly before, but this was different. This was being presented to the extended family and family friends, being evaluated as potential Sutherland material. The estate was exactly as overwhelming as she had feared, all manicured lawns and old-money elegance. Peyton felt painfully out of place in her department store dress, surrounded by women in designer everything. Alexander kept her close, his hand on her lower back as he introduced her around. Everyone was polite but assessing, and she felt like a specimen under glass. "Peyton." Sebastian's voice cut through her anxiety like a lifeline. He appeared at her elbow, wearing slacks and a button-down that looked uncomfortable on him. "Mom's asking for you. Something about helping with the desserts." It was clearly an excuse, but Alexander bought it. "Go ahead." "I need to talk to Uncle Richard anyway." Sebastian steered her away from the crowd, through the main house and into a quiet kitchen. "You looked like you were about to bolt," he said. Peyton leaned against the counter, closing her eyes. "Is it that obvious? To me it is." She opened her eyes to find him watching her with that same intense expression from the diner. The kitchen suddenly felt very small. "Why did you really bring me in here?" she asked quietly. Sebastian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she had seen 1,000 times but which suddenly felt weighted with meaning. "Because watching you pretend to be happy out there was killing me." Her heart started to pound. "Sebastian, I know I shouldn't say anything." You're dating my brother and he's crazy about you, and I should just keep my mouth shut and be supportive." He took a step closer. "But Peyton, you're miserable. Anyone with eyes can see it. I'm not miserable." "Then why do you look so relieved every time you escape from him? Why do you tense up when he touches you? Why do you still call me when something goes wrong instead of your boyfriend?" "Because you're the one I want," she thought but did not say. "Because I think I've been in love with you for years and was too scared to risk our friendship. Because standing in this kitchen with you feels more right than anything I've ever felt with Alexander." "What do you want me to say?" she whispered instead. Sebastian closed the distance between them, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "I want you to tell me I'm wrong. I want you to tell me that you're in love with Alex and that I'm seeing things that aren't there because I'm jealous." "Why would you be jealous?" he laughed, a rough sound with no humor in it. "Come on, Peyton, don't make me spell it out," her breath caught. "Sebastian, I've been in love with you since junior year of college." The words came out raw and honest. "That night we stayed up until dawn studying for finals, and you fell asleep on my shoulder, and I realized I never wanted to be anywhere else. I've loved you for 6 years, and I never said anything because I was terrified of losing you. And then you met Alex, and I thought maybe it was for the best. Maybe you two would be happy and I could move on." He shook his head. "But watching you with him, watching you try so hard to make it work when it's clearly wrong, it's torture. So I'm asking you, please, tell me I'm wrong about how you feel." Peyton's eyes filled with tears. "You're not wrong." The admission hung between them, changing everything. Sebastian reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. His thumbs brushed away her tears. "Then what are we doing?" he asked softly. "I don't know. I'm dating your brother. This is so complicated." "It doesn't have to be. Break up with him. Be with me. And ruin your relationship with Alexander. Tear your family apart. Sebastian, I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering. Peyton, I don't care about complicated. I care about you." She wanted to kiss him so badly it physically hurt. Wanted to close the distance between them and finally stop pretending. But the weight of everything held her back. Alexander's kindness, even if it rang hollow. The Sutherland family's expectations. The friendship she and Sebastian had built so carefully over the years. "I need time," she said. "I need to think." Sebastian let his hands fall away, and the loss of contact felt like grief. "Okay, take your time." She fled the kitchen before she could change her mind, heading blindly for the bathroom to compose herself. In the mirror, her face was flushed and her eyes were too bright. She looked like someone on the edge of something momentous and terrifying. When she returned to the party, Alexander immediately pulled her aside. "There you are. Listen, my parents want us to join them for dinner next week. Just the 4 of us. I think they really like you." Peyton looked past him to where Sebastian stood across the lawn, talking to an elderly aunt but watching her with those steady gray eyes. "Alexander, we need to talk." Something in her tone made his smile falter. "That sounds ominous. Can we go somewhere private?" They ended up in his father's study, surrounded by leather and expensive books. Alexander closed the door and turned to face her, his expression wary. "What's going on, Peyton?" She took a deep breath. "I don't think this is working." "What isn't working?" "Us. This relationship. I've been trying so hard to make it fit, but it just doesn't." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Is this about Sebastian?" The question startled her. "What?" "I'm not blind, Peyton. I see the way you look at him, the way he looks at you." He laughed bitterly. "I actually thought maybe I was imagining it, that my brother couldn't possibly be in love with my girlfriend. Alexander, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen." He turned away, gripping the back of a chair. "How long?" "I only just realized." "Tonight, actually, when he told me." "He told you?" Alexander's voice was flat. And you feel the same way. It was not a question. Peyton felt tears threaten again. I'm so sorry. Do you love him? She thought about 6 years of friendship, of late-night phone calls and inside jokes and knowing glances across crowded rooms. She thought about how Sebastian always showed up, how he made her laugh even when she wanted to cry, how being with him felt like coming home. Yes, she whispered. I think I always have. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. When he finally turned back to her, his expression was resigned. I can't really compete with that, can I? With history and friendship and whatever else you two have built together. This isn't about competition. You're a good person, Alexander. You deserve someone who loves you completely, not someone who's half here. And what about Sebastian? What about our family? I don't know. We haven't figured that part out yet. He walked to the door, opened it, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I'm angry and hurt, but I don't hate you. And Sebastian, he's my brother. We'll work it out eventually. He met her eyes. But do me a favor. Be sure, really sure. Because if you break his heart, if you decide this was all a mistake, I will never forgive you. I'm sure, Peyton said, and meant it. Alexander nodded once and walked out, leaving her alone in the study. She stood there for a moment, letting the reality of what she had just done sink in. She had ended it. She had finally, actually ended it. Now she just needed to find Sebastian. She found him by the pool house, sitting on a stone bench and staring at the water. He looked up when she approached, his expression guarded. How did it go? I broke up with him. Sebastian stood slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. You did? I did. She walked toward him, each step feeling monumental. You were right. I was miserable. I was trying to force something that was never going to work because I was too scared to admit what I really wanted. And what do you really want? She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. You. I want you. I've wanted you for so long that I don't remember not wanting you. I just never let myself acknowledge it because the thought of losing you as a friend terrified me. Sebastian reached for her hands, lacing their fingers together. You're never going to lose me. Friend, boyfriend, whatever we are, I'm not going anywhere. Boyfriend, she said, testing the word. I like the sound of that. He pulled her closer until they were sharing breath. Yeah, can I kiss you now? Because I've been wanting to for about 6 years and I'm running out of patience. Peyton laughed, giddy and relieved and happier than she had felt in months. Yes, please. Sebastian kissed her like he had been saving it up, like he was making up for lost time, and it was everything. His hands cupped her face, then slid into her hair, and she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with everything she had been holding in for so long. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. That was worth the wait, he said. Definitely worth the wait. They stayed like that for a while, just holding each other while the party continued in the distance. Eventually they would have to go back, face his family, deal with the aftermath of the broken relationship with Alexander. But for now, this moment was theirs. We should probably leave, Sebastian said finally. This might not be the best place for us right now. Where should we go? He grinned. Want to get pancakes? Peyton laughed and let him lead her toward the parking lot, their hands still intertwined. As they passed through the gate, she saw Alexander standing on the terrace, watching them. He raised a hand in acknowledgement and she returned the gesture. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. In Sebastian's truck, with the windows down and the radio playing softly, Peyton felt something settle into place. This was right. This was what she had been missing. Hey, Sebastian said, glancing over at her. What are you thinking about? How stupid I was for not seeing this sooner. You weren't stupid, you were careful, that's different. I wasted 3 months dating the wrong brother. Sebastian squeezed her hand. Not wasted, you figured out what you didn't want, and now we're here. At the diner, they sat in the same booth as that night after her mother's surgery, but everything felt different now. Sebastian sat beside her instead of across from her, his thigh pressed against hers, his arm along the back of the booth. "This is weird," Peyton said. "Bad weird. Good weird. Really good weird." They ordered their food and talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing as easily as it always had, but with a new undercurrent of something electric. Every casual touch felt significant. Every shared smile held promise. "Tell me something," Sebastian said as they split a slice of pie. "When did you really know that you had feelings for me?" Peyton thought about it. "Remember last summer, that beach trip we took with everyone? You got sunburned and I had to help you put aloe on your back, and you were making terrible jokes to cover how much it hurt. I looked at you and thought, this is my favorite person in the world. This is who I want to be with. But I shoved it down because you were my best friend and I thought I was being ridiculous. I remember that trip. I spent the whole weekend trying not to stare at you in that blue swimsuit. You stared at me in that swimsuit so much. It was embarrassing." She laughed and kissed his cheek. "You should have said something. I was terrified you didn't feel the same way, and then when you started dating Alex, I figured I had my answer. That must have been awful. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're here now. That's what matters." They stayed at the diner until dawn, talking and laughing and occasionally kissing until the waitress started giving them knowing looks. When Sebastian finally drove her home, the sun was coming up over the city. At her apartment door, he pulled her close for another kiss, this one slow and sweet. "I should let you get some sleep," he murmured against her lips, "or you could come inside." He drew back to look at her. "Peyton, just to sleep. I'm exhausted and I don't want you to leave yet." Sebastian studied her face, then nodded. "Okay, just to sleep." They curled up in her bed, fully clothed, Peyton's head on Sebastian's chest, his arms wrapped around her. It felt safe and right and perfect. "I love you," she whispered into the quiet. "I love you too. Always have." She fell asleep smiling. Over the next few months, Peyton and Sebastian navigated the complicated transition from friends to couple. It was not always easy. There were awkward family dinners where Alexander was stiffly polite, and friends who did not quite know how to handle the shift in dynamics. Sebastian's mother had opinions about the situation that she expressed frequently and forcefully, but there were also moments of perfect happiness. Lazy Sunday mornings in bed, inside jokes that took on new meaning. The incredible realization that her boyfriend was also her best friend, that she did not have to compartmentalize or compromise different parts of herself. Sebastian was still Sebastian, steady and dependable and kind, but now she got to see the romantic side of him too. The way he remembered small details about her preferences, how he would show up at her office with coffee just because. The thoughtful gifts that showed he really knew her, and the physical side of their relationship was a revelation. All that friendship and trust and understanding translated into intimacy that left her breathless. Every touch felt meaningful. Every kiss was a conversation. "This is so much better than I imagined," Sebastian said one evening as they cooked dinner together in his apartment. "You imagined this?" "Extensively. Embarrassingly extensively." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "But reality is better. Agree completely." 6 months after that garden party, things with Alexander started to thaw. He met someone new, a corporate lawyer who actually seemed to match his ambitions and lifestyle. At a family Christmas dinner, he pulled Sebastian aside for a private conversation that ended with the two brothers hugging. "What did he say?" Peyton asked later. "That he's happy for us. That he can see I love you and you love me, and he's not going to hold a grudge forever." Sebastian pulled her close. His exact words were, "Take care of her or I will destroy you." Very brotherly. I thought so. That night, as they lay in bed at the Sutherland estate in Sebastian's childhood room, Peyton felt something click into place. This was family. This was home. This was everything she had been looking for without knowing it. A year after they got together, Sebastian took her back to that same diner where they had shared so many late-night conversations. They sat in their usual booth, and he was nervous in a way she had never seen him before. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong. The opposite of wrong." He took her hands across the table. "Peyton, this place is where I first realized I couldn't keep pretending I was fine with just being your friend. This is where we had our first real conversation as something more than friends. It feels right to do this here." He pulled out a small velvet box and Peyton's heart started to race. "We've done everything backward," Sebastian continued. "Friends first, then couple, then falling in love even though I was already in love with you the whole time. So it makes sense that I would propose to you in a diner at midnight over pancakes instead of somewhere fancy." He opened the box to reveal a simple, perfect ring. "Marry me, Peyton. Be my wife and my best friend and my person for the rest of our lives." "Yes," she said through happy tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her across the table, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. The few other diner patrons applauded, and the waitress brought them free pie to celebrate. They got married 8 months later in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. Alexander was Sebastian's best man, and his speech was funny and heartfelt and only slightly bitter. He raised a toast to the bride and groom and wished them all the happiness he knew they would find together. Peyton wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair, and Sebastian cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. They wrote their own vows, promising friendship and partnership and love that had been building for years before they were brave enough to acknowledge it. At the reception, Sebastian pulled her close for their first dance as husband and wife. "How did I get so lucky?" he murmured. "We both got lucky. We found each other before we even knew we were looking. Best friendship I ever had. Best marriage we will ever have." He kissed her as the song played, and Peyton thought about that night at the hospital, when she had realized Sebastian was the one she wanted most. About all the years of friendship that had laid the foundation for this love. About how sometimes the person you need is right there beside you, waiting for you to open your eyes and see them. 2 years into their marriage, Sebastian came home from work to find Peyton sitting on the couch with a strange expression on her face. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, dropping his bag and crossing to her. "Nothing's wrong." She held up a small white stick. "I'm pregnant." Sebastian stared at it, then at her, then back at the test. "You're pregnant. We're having a baby." He sat down heavily beside her, taking her hand. "We're having a baby. Are you happy? You look shocked." "I'm not shocked. Okay, I'm a little shocked, but also incredibly happy." He pulled her into his arms. "We're going to be parents, we are. Are you ready for this, with you? I'm ready for anything." Their daughter was born on a snowy January morning, 6 pounds and perfect. They named her Sophie, and she had Sebastian's gray eyes and Peyton's smile. Holding her for the first time, Sebastian looked at Peyton with such overwhelming love that it took her breath away. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For taking a chance on us. For being brave enough to risk everything we had for something better. Best decision I ever made." Sophie grew up surrounded by love, by parents who were partners in every sense of the word. She heard stories about how her mom and dad had been best friends first, how they had taken the long way around to finding each other. She watched them laugh together and support each other and navigate life as a team. On Sophie's 5th birthday, at a party full of family and friends, Alexander brought his wife and their twin boys. He found Peyton in the kitchen, putting candles on the cake. "She's a great kid," he said. "Thank you. Your boys are wonderful too. Listen, I never properly apologized for being cold to you for so long after everything happened." Peyton shook her head. "You don't need to apologize. I hurt you. You had every right to be upset." "Maybe. But Sebastian is happier than I've ever seen him, and you two are clearly perfect together." "I was an idiot for not seeing that sooner," he smiled. "I'm glad my brother got the girl in the end, even if it meant I didn't." "You got your girl too." "I did. Funny how things work out." They carried the cake out together, and everyone sang while Sophie made a wish and blew out her candles. Sebastian caught Peyton's eye across the room and winked, and her heart filled to bursting. That night, after Sophie was asleep and the house was quiet, Peyton and Sebastian sat on the back porch, watching the stars. "You ever think about how different things could have been?" Peyton asked. "If I had never dated Alexander, if you had never told me how you felt, sometimes. But I try not to dwell on alternate timelines. This is the one we got, and it's pretty perfect." "Pretty perfect," she agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "Hey, Peyton." "Yeah, I would do it all again. Every minute, every complication, every awkward family dinner, all of it just to end up right here with you." She turned to kiss him, soft and sweet. "Me too. Every single time." As the years passed, their love only deepened. They had another child, a son they named Samuel. They bought a bigger house with a yard for the kids to play in. Sebastian's engineering firm expanded, and Peyton's career as a landscape architect took off. They went on date nights to that same diner, sharing pancakes and remembering. They fought sometimes, because all couples do, but they never went to bed angry. They made each other laugh every single day. They supported each other's dreams and comforted each other's fears and built a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Sophie grew up and went to college. Then Samuel followed a few years later. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Sebastian and Peyton renewed their vows at the botanical garden where they had gotten married, surrounded by their children and friends and family. Alexander stood as Sebastian's best man again, and this time his speech was nothing but happy. He talked about watching his brother fall in love, about how some people are meant to be together even if it takes them a while to figure it out. He raised his glass and toasted to friendship and love and second chances. That night, alone in their hotel room, Sebastian pulled Peyton close. 20 years, he said. 20 years of marriage and about 26 years of loving you. Best 26 years of my life. Mine too." He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. "Here's to 26 more, at least." Peyton thought back to that girl who had been so lost, trying to force herself to love the wrong man because he seemed like what she should want. Who had been so scared of risking her most important friendship that she almost let the love of her life slip away. Who had finally been brave enough to take a chance, to admit what her heart had known all along. She thought about Sebastian finding her crying on her apartment steps, about hospital waiting rooms and late-night diners and quiet confessions in kitchen. About how love does not always look the way you expect it to, but when it is right, you know it in your bones. "I love you," she whispered. "Today and always." "I love you too. Forever and always." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, still best friends, still deeply in love, still choosing each other every single day. And outside their window, the stars shone down on a love story that had started with friendship and become something extraordinary. A reminder that sometimes the person you are looking for has been beside you all along, just waiting for you to finally see them. The next morning they woke to their phones ringing. It was Sophie, calling to tell them she was engaged. Her fiancé was someone she had known since high school, a friend who had become something more. "He was my best friend first," Sophie said, her voice bubbling with excitement. Just like you and Dad. Is that weird? Peyton met Sebastian's eyes across the bed, both of them smiling. Not weird at all, Peyton said. That's exactly how the best love stories start. After they hung up, Sebastian pulled Peyton back into bed, holding her close. Our daughter found her Sebastian, he said. She did. I hope she's as happy as we are. Nobody's as happy as we are. Peyton laughed and kissed him. Probably true. They lay there for a while, content in the quiet morning, in the life they had built, in the love that had started as friendship and grown into forever. Years later, when Sophie got married in that same botanical garden, Peyton watched her daughter dance with her new husband and remembered her own wedding day. Remembered being young and scared and so overwhelmingly in love. Remembered thinking that this was what happiness looked like. Sebastian appeared at her elbow, handing her a glass of champagne. You okay? He asked. More than okay, just feeling nostalgic. Our baby is all grown up. She is. Peyton leaned into him. We did good. We did great. They watched their daughter laugh with her new husband, watched Alexander dance with his wife, watched Samuel chat with friends, watched the life they had built unfold around them, full of love and joy and connection. You know what the best part is? Sebastian said. What? After all these years, you're still my favorite person. Still the one I want to call when something good happens or something bad happens or nothing happens at all. Still my best friend. Peyton's eyes filled with tears. You're my favorite person too. Always have been, always will be. Even when I steal your pancakes, especially when you steal my pancakes. He kissed her temple, soft and sweet, and they swayed together to the music. Around them, their family and friends celebrated, but in that moment it was just the two of them, best friends and lovers and partners, exactly as they had always been meant to be. That night, driving home from the wedding, Peyton reached over and took Sebastian's hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For being patient, for waiting for me to catch up, for loving me even when I was too scared to love you back. You were never too scared. You were just being careful with something precious. I understood that. Still, thank you for not giving up. Sebastian brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. I could never give up on you. You're my person, Peyton. You always have been. As they drove through the night, hands intertwined, Peyton thought about all the years behind them and all the years ahead. Thought about how lucky she was to have found her best friend and her soulmate in the same person. Thought about how love, real love, was worth the wait and the risk and the complications. She had started out falling for the wrong brother, blind to what had been right in front of her all along. But in the end, she had found exactly what she needed. Not the billionaire heir with his perfect life and careful plans, but the engineer with the kind heart and steady hands who had been loving her quietly for years. The best friend who became the love of her life. The man who answered the phone on the first ring and showed up without being asked and knew her better than she knew herself. The one who had been waiting patiently for her to open her eyes and see what was really there, her Sebastian, her person, her home. And as they drove through the quiet streets toward the house where they had raised their children and built their life, Peyton knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. In this car with this man, living this beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary life they had created together. It was not the story she had planned. It was better. Because the best love stories are not the ones you imagine, but the ones that unfold naturally when you are brave enough to follow your heart, even when it leads you somewhere unexpected. Especially when it leads you somewhere unexpected. Especially when it leads you home.